The Haunting of the Antique Mirror. James and Lisa Morgan were a young couple, always on the lookout for unique treasures to fill their quaint old house in the suburbs. One sunny Saturday morning, they decided to visit a flea market on the outskirts of town, known for its eclectic array of antiques and curiosities. As they wandered through the maze of stalls, something caught Lisa's eye: a large, ornate mirror with an intricately carved wooden frame. The vendor, an elderly man with a cryptic smile, noticed their interest and shuffled over. "This mirror has a long history," he said, his voice raspy. "Some say it's enchanted." Intrigued by the mirror's craftsmanship and the vendor's mysterious words, James and Lisa decided to buy it. They negotiated a fair price and loaded the heavy mirror into their car, unaware of the dark history they were bringing into their home. Once the mirror was hung on the living room wall, it added a touch of elegance to their decor. For the first few days, everything seemed normal, but soon they began to notice strange occurrences. It started with subtle oddities. Lisa was the first to sense it, an eerie feeling that something was off. She would catch glimpses of shadows moving in the mirror that didn't correspond to anything in the room. James dismissed her concerns, attributing them to reflections from outside or tricks of the light. One night, as Lisa was reading a book on the couch, she glanced at the mirror and froze. Reflected in the glass was a figure standing in the hallway, a tall man with hollow eyes and a menacing grin. She spun around, her heart pounding, but the hallway was empty. When she looked back at the mirror, the figure was gone. "James," she called out, her voice trembling. He rushed into the room, concern etched on his face. "There was someone in the mirror," she stammered. "I swear I saw him." James tried to reassure her, but the unease in his gut told him otherwise. That night, sleep eluded them both. The next morning, they decided to cover the mirror with a sheet, hoping to rid themselves of the unsettling presence. However, the strange occurrences only intensified. The sheet would be mysteriously removed, and they would find the mirror uncovered, reflecting their anxious faces back at them. Objects in the house began to move on their own. A chair dragged itself across the floor, doors creaked open and shut, and lights flickered ominously. One evening, while James was working late at the office, Lisa found herself alone in the house. The atmosphere felt heavy and oppressive. She tried to distract herself with TV, but the sense of being watched was overwhelming. Gathering her courage, she approached the mirror, determined to confront whatever was haunting them. As she stood before it, her reflection seemed to warp and twist. The room behind her darkened, and she saw not her own reflection, but that of a ghostly woman with sunken eyes and a mournful expression. The woman's lips moved, forming words that Lisa couldn't hear, but she could feel the anguish emanating from her. In a flash, the woman's image was replaced by the grinning man, his eyes locking onto Lisa's with malevolent glee. He reached out a ghostly hand, and Lisa felt an icy grip around her throat. Gasping for breath, she stumbled back, breaking the connection. When James returned home, he found Lisa huddled on the couch, tears streaming down her face. She recounted the horrifying experience, and James knew they had to do something. They decided to research the mirror's origins, hoping to find a way to break its hold over them. Their search led them to a local historian, Mrs. Hawthorne, who specialized in occult artifacts. She listened intently to their story, her expression growing graver by the minute. "This mirror is known as the cursed looking glass," she explained. "It belonged to a wealthy family in the 19th century. The legend says that the patriarch, a man named Gideon Blackwood, dabbled in dark magic. He trapped the souls of his enemies in the mirror, using it as a tool for revenge. After his death, the mirror changed hands many times, always bringing misfortune and death to its owners. Mrs. Hawthorne advised them to destroy the mirror, but warned that it wouldn't be easy. The spirits within will not go quietly," she said. "You must break the mirror at the stroke of midnight when its power is weakest." That night, armed with sledgehammers, James and Lisa prepared to confront the malevolent forces within the mirror. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, the house seemed to come alive with a sinister energy. Shadows writhed on the walls, and the air grew frigid. At the stroke of midnight, they struck the mirror. It shattered with a deafening crash, fragments flying everywhere. For a moment, it felt like a victory, but then an otherworldly wail filled the room, and the shattered pieces began to swirl and reassemble. Panicked, James and Lisa continued to strike the reforming mirror, desperate to end the nightmare. Finally, with a final, resounding blow, the mirror exploded into 1,000 pieces, the wail dying away into silence. Exhausted and trembling, they sank to the floor, surrounded by shards of glass. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and for the first time in weeks, they felt a sense of peace. Over the next few days, they carefully cleaned up the remains of the mirror and disposed of them, hoping to put the ordeal behind them. Life slowly returned to normal, but they remained wary, their experience a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk within seemingly innocent objects. Months later, at another flea market, they stumbled upon a small, unassuming trinket box. As they examined it, the vendor, an elderly woman with a knowing smile, watched them closely. "That box has a long history," she said cryptically. James and Lisa exchanged a glance, a shiver running down their spines. With a polite smile, they set the box back down and walked away, vowing to be more cautious about the treasures they brought into their home. The memory of the haunted mirror served as a chilling reminder that some things are best left untouched. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey through the haunting of the antique mirror. Until we meet again, may your path be illuminated by the light of courage and truth.